Anyways,
so Russell Brand went on Bill Maher's podcast, Club Random, and they had an interesting back and forth here, which I'm about to show you, on the issue of capitalism.
Capitalism. Now, what do I think about capitalism, guys? My personal beliefs, right? Capitalism is good. I like that you're able to sell things and, start a little business or whatever. But my issue is, once capitalism starts becoming like a fucking monopoly, like there's monopolies everywhere, and then they start bribing politicians, and it becomes legal to just like give money and shit, and like corrupt people and lobbying, and once it gets to that point, no, like you gotta heavily regulate capitalism or it will destroy itself. It's a self-destroying system, like most systems are. You need to heavily regulate it. You don't heavily regulate it, the 1% grows more powerful. They bribe the government. They basically control the government at a certain point. The government just does everything they do. I mean, look at the Ohio train derailments. They've never had to upgrade their fucking brake system because they lobbied against it. And they have Civil War era brakes on the trains. Civil War era, bro. That is not good.
I tell you what, man, that dang old NRA with our rights, man. The insurance you get with dismemberment, not like that, you get like $20,000 just for your arm blows off, man.
Exactly. Then you got the whole NRA, dude. Like, I mean, they're not as powerful anymore, but they would lobby the government. There's other gun manufacturers that lobby the government. There's fucking school shootings after school shooting after school shootings. We don't do nothing about it, right? And then just recently, the Nashville, Tennessee, there was a fucking a shooting there, and like all the conservatives are freaking out. Oh, she was trans. That is not the point. What is the main thing that all these school shooters have in common? They have a gun. It's not that they're trans, not that they're white men, because most of them are committed by white men. There were only 3 that were like done by trans. So that's not even a good argument. All right.
Yeah, man, I tell you what, man, I seen the dang old rake over there down Smithsonian, man, right next to Lincoln's had the arch chair, man, the dang old caveman section.
That's caveman brain if you think like that.
Really think Maher sort of, the mask slips a little bit here, as you're going to see. And his commentary is sort of just irredeemably tainted by his own experience as a uber wealthy dude. Okay, so let's watch and then we'll break it down.
Over my lucky little life. But I also believe that I read a good book by a man called Mark Fisher, God rest his soul, though he was an atheist and wouldn't thank me for saying that. He wrote a book called Capitalism. He believes that the great triumph of capitalism has been that we can no longer envisage a system beyond it. He said, famously, it's easier to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism. People aren't even...
Let me just pause to react to that for a second.
That's true. That's
a really good point.
Yes.
That's a really good point.
It's easier for people to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism. Because I always tell people, we just need a better system. And you can call it whatever the fuck you want. Call it unicornism. All right, call it candyism. Call it Jesus Christism. Call it communalism. Call it commune. Whatever the fuck you want to call it, socialism. We need an upgrade from capitalism. From rampant, monopolistic, in control of fucking corporations, capitalism. We can't have this. We can't have this. It's self-destructive, bro. It's self-destructive. Kyle has a point. And Russell Brand has a point. Surprisingly, because Russell Brand is a wacko. Wacko. Dude, he's a fucking... Let me see if I have a...
Good one, man. They got another one, man. What do you go with the difference between a man and a little squirt?
He's a wacko, bro.
Hi, everyone. I'm Iluma.
I don't have any wacko ones in here.
Oh, why does it lie?
Let's keep going.
That the triumph of capitalism is that people just can't imagine not having capitalism, right? That it's just like, we feel like this is just the natural order of the world, this is the natural state of things. Now, what history shows us is that is definitely not true. This is not the natural state of the world. This is not the natural order of things. There are decisions that are made that get us here. There are laws that get us here. There are certain...
That made of money.
Philosophical fundamentals that we've implemented that got us here. And all these, not all these things, but probably most of these things are subject to change and subject to evolution. But that's a great point that, yes, the triumph of capitalism is people have a hard time imagining life beyond capitalism as if there's any other option, right?
We literally have corporate communism right now. We literally have, because think about it. Socialism is when you use taxpayer money, right? It's like a big insurance pool, the taxpayer. You use that money to invest it back into the society. That's why it's called social. You invest it back into society, build better roads, bridges, airports, more better parks, greenize America, make more parks and shit, like protect the environment, make eco-friendly stuff, make renewable energy and shit, you know what I mean? Also, invest in healthcare. You can have a mainstream healthcare system like Europe, like Australia, like Canada, like all these other fucking countries, dude, right? Like fucking like Hungary probably, Cuba, like that, bro. You can like literally try your best to like to just give everyone healthcare, or like, you know, give everyone like a food stamp here and there, or give everyone a UBI or something like that. That's what you're supposed to do with fucking taxpayer money. Not just invest it into endless wars, all right? Not just to invade other countries and shit, do coups and like overthrow people, you know what I mean? Assassinate motherfuckers, do oil deals. Not for all of that. Corporate subsidies, no. It's supposed to be to invest back into society, man. To make your society better. And the reason why we have corporate communism, literally, it's a joke, but like...
Corporate communism.
It kind of is the point, because our taxpayer money gets subsidized back into these monopolies and these big companies, right? They get subsidized, they get tax breaks, they get all these things. Look at oil, they get tax breaks and all this shit. They're like an ancient fucking industry. We're like literally propping them up. We should let them die off. Fuck oil, dude. All right? We can nationalize that. The government takes control of it. It's no longer for profit, right? And then we can literally distribute like gasoline the way it should be. Like that shouldn't have to be, because we're just getting price gouged. During the pandemic, do you see the price of gas? It's not supposed to be like that. It's not. And like I know Saudi Arabia was involved and all these other countries like Russia and shit. And then you got the whole Ukraine stuff going on. But like a lot of these companies were just price gouging us, man. And it's bullshit. It's bullshit. That's why it's fucking corporate communism, because all the money trickles up to them.
Willing to imagine that there's a possibility of divorcing corporate and state interests.
Because capitalism works.
I'm not talking about...
I would love for him to expound on that. I would love... Now, he's going to try, but not really do it well. But like, I'd love for him to go off about that more. Work how? What's your definition there? Like, what do you mean? How has it, quote unquote, worked? How has it worked? As in, like, you know, maybe the argument would be, well,
corporate
it's better
communism.
than feudalism. It's better than absolute monarchies.
Yeah, we upgraded from like the medieval times. You know what I mean? We did make an upgrade into capitalism. Like we used to have feudalism, which was when you would plow the fucking fields and work for the fucking king and shit. Right? And you'll pay him your taxes and give him most of your food, and have a little bit to sell for yourself or whatever you're making. Like all your labor, that's the whole point. Your labor, what you're doing, what you're raised doing, your labor goes to the fucking monarch. And right now in the system we have it, your labor goes to the CEO, like the profit, like everything. It's outstanding. And look, CEOs do work, you know what I mean? But honestly, we should just replace CEOs with AIs, bro. They shouldn't get paid as much as they do. They don't work. You're not doing the literal labor. So that's why I'm saying you're sucking labor out of people. You're sucking like their literal fucking
but
value, man.
Granted,
you're stealing their value.
But does that mean that we're at the end point? It's this end of history analysis, right? Like we've already come to this is the end point. It's going to be like this in perpetuity now. Like we figured it all out. We've hit this point, and now we're stagnant, and we just continue doing what we're doing. That's not how it works. That's not how it works.
Aren't even willing to imagine that there's a possibility of divorcing corporate and state interests.
Because capitalism works.
I'm not talking
for
about
a great deal of people. That's why it's popular.
It's working less and less, though.
The same way,
Yes,
like,
it is.
stereo became popular. Like, we could have stuck with mono, but we were like, you know what? This is actually better. It kind of works. Does it lose something? I guess that's why they keep putting albums back out in mono. And I'm like, I don't know. Why don't you just put them back on 78? For fuck's sake, why are we going backwards? Or the kids, they like vinyl. Like, you know, I have my old vinyl. It's like, please. enjoy listening to shitty sounding records that are scratchy.
I would say, in a way, people are on the streets. People have been on the streets, not in enormous numbers, protesting for an end to current conflicts. The Black Lives Matter protests, and obviously the movements around Donald Trump, and the movements around masks, and the trucker protests, and all of the
I may just never come back.
Occupy Wall Street is probably the best example.
Protests in Germany and Sri Lanka and Holland, all around the world, people are protesting.
Do you know a lot of people who have been at protests or in the streets? Because I don't know anybody.
Well, I mean, what does that say about you, Bill Maher? Bill! If you don't know anybody that's protesting or cares about issues, that's your fault. You're surrounded by rich douches. Douches. Whatever. How do you say two of them? I don't fucking know. You're surrounded by dicks, bro. Dicks. You're surrounded by people who don't care. You're surrounded by rich dudes. They don't care. They're not touched by the issues of the regular person. So how do you expect to know anyone that cares? You're not friends with Bernie. You're not friends with Bernie Sanders. If you were, you would know somebody.
Bill.
I'm not friends with him too, but I'm at least
Bill.
I at least care about these
issues. He's telling on himself, man, and he doesn't realize it. Bless his heart. He doesn't realize it.
He doesn't realize it.
I don't know anybody who protests. This is going to get worse, by the way. He's going to keep going down this train of thought, and watch where it ends up.
It's like
I may just never come back.
Like, people were sympathetic. Maybe it's because I'm older and people my age don't go out and do anything, let alone go.
And people with your amount of money in your circles, maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe just a little bit.
Yeah,
fucking street. I don't go to a restaurant.
Even that too much bother.
It's amazing how ageist this country is. But
what I mean to say is that there are significant protest movements, but I think what there is a clear lack of a real vision. That probably since Clinton and Blair onwards, no one is suggesting anything other than the management of decline, kind of intimate bureaucracies where we biometrically measure and manage our own health. No one's saying we could do something fantastic with America. Rhetorically, of course, great claims are made by either side, but no one's suggesting that we could reorganize society. No one's anticipating what the AI revolution is about to behold, the loss of jobs, the despair, the despondency, and that is likely to engender. And we were sort of seeing a return to feudalism. In that beautiful film, The House I Live In, the great writer of that show, The Wife, said, when it comes to the opioid crisis and the addiction crisis in your country, he said, why don't we admit that in a post-manufacturing America, we've got no need for 20% of the population. They're redundant now. They're defunct. We can lose them. And sometimes I think it comes down to simple demographics, that this nation can carry a good many deeply dissatisfied and unhappy people. And by God, it looks like it is.
People that are unhappy.
This ain't nothing. All of this conflagration that's going on in this country, mostly it's seemingly housed around the culture war, where I think they're quite.
Dude, the other day, right, I was driving to therapy, and in the corner, there was a homeless dude, bro. There was a homeless dude, and like, you know, I don't really have a lot of cash on me, so I feel so fucking bad, dude. And I was talking to this guy, I rolled down the window, and I was just talking to him, and you know, he told me like. You know, he's like 68. You know, his back is fucked up. He has no one to like help him and shit. Like his family's all gone, I guess. And bro, and it's like people are going through tough fucking times. And how many of those people are veterans? And how many of those people lost their houses during the fucking 2008 Wall Street fuck up with the housing? And how many of those people, you know, like, just are just screwed over because of medical debt or because our fucking country sucks. There's so much shit about this country sucks, right? And then you say anything. You say anything to want to make it better, and people think that you like suck and shit, and that you hate everybody. You hate the country. Oh, you're not patriotic. Bro, I'm very patriotic. I literally want to get rid of homelessness because it's so fucking depressing.
Happy for people to quibble and quarrel and war, because ultimately that doesn't affect the interests of the kind of the elite establishment interest that I'm interested in addressing, and that Bernie has tried to address. And I would offer you this, because it seems as during the conversations I've had with some former Democrat Party presidential candidates, that party almost consciously, deliberately, and explicitly decided they would rather have Trump win than win themselves with Bernie. And I'd like to put that to you, because for me, if that is true,
I will answer that, but I will answer it first in this way.
I hope Bernie can run again somehow,
Same
dude.
topic, but a little more toward the pedestrian diurnal. I mean, I know you intellectuals, you know.
What do you mean, you intellectuals? I just told you I'm from the New Jersey of England.
I know,
I'm sipping kombucha.
You do think like an intellectual. I mean, it's because that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, Let's go to daily life and see if daily life matches with your theory of life. Like, as you go through your day. Now, maybe I live in a charmed world.
Of course you do. Of course I do.
I don't think I live in such a charmed world.
You're rich.
I go to an office, I see people who work. They're not all like making giant salaries. One person at that show is. I'm not going to say who. But this place, HBO is very generous. It's a good job. But it's just a job. We all do it. I'm the same as them. Like, there are days like, oh God, I don't want to. I'm tired of it, but I got to keep working. And we work. We all do our best. And I don't think they're unhappy. And then if I go out and get.
But if Bill Maher gets fired right now, he's not gonna go fucking bankrupt or homeless or whatever. He is not a fucking like middle class person. He's like a millionaire at least, that or more. So he's like, sometimes I don't feel like going to work. You don't have to, motherfucker. Do it some other day. You have a better job than most people. You get paid more. You probably have good vacation and all that shit. You know what I mean? You can't be like, I'm struggling too. He's acting like he's struggling.
Coffee somewhere, and even a waiter or even the guy who's like the valet guy, they don't seem miserable. Like, oh my God, I'm gonna valet guy. They're like, they're living their life.
They get paid
when I was in my 20s, I was poor. I got it. Like, I'm working my way up.
I'm not gonna be coming up
there is opportunity, and there's stumbles along the way, and there's lots of problems, and we should keep working on them. But it's like, I don't know if it's gonna get better by being massively rewriting human nature, which is impossible, or the way the world is constructed.
It's not human nature.
People are selfish.
It's the system that we have. We could have a system that incentivizes more charity, that incentivizes more people to like give tax money so that we can actually fix the shit around our country that's falling apart. A system that ends corruption, ends lobbying, so that we can actually get some of this stuff done. The reason why it's so hard to even get renewable energy in any state is because oil, it's an old lobby, but they're powerful. They have a lot of money. Money means power in a capitalist system, right? And they use that power to dictate the future of the country. And they're slowly losing that battle. They're going to lose but they're going to destroy the planet too. They're literally going to destroy the planet. Trying to make money.
Corporate communism.
I think you have to always factor that in. Anytime you're developing any kind of economic system, people are selfish, and they will go toward what makes their life better.
That's why you need to regulate. You need to regulate the system so that people can't be that greedy or greedy at all.
Hopefully not at the cost of somebody too much, but sometimes,
You believe in enlightened self-interest.
Oh boy, that was something. He's like, when I talk to the waiter or I talk to the valet, people are fine. They're doing okay. They're living their life. It's like, dude, you live in a very wealthy place. You work a very lucrative job.
Yes.
And
that's what I said.
You're around some people who are just, doing well financially.
I may just never come back.
Like when you interact with working class people, what, you think the valet doesn't have money struggles?
Yeah.
You think that, exactly. You could tell by just a simple interaction where you do platitudes and niceties that hey, everything's fine. Everything's working okay. I mean, I'm sure you could go back to the days of absolute monarchies and make a similar argument. Hey, I don't see what the problem is. I went down to the merchant at the corner and I got something from him and he seemed really happy. And then, I walked over here and it's just a really dumb analysis from purposefully within his little bubble. Because to Russell Brand's point, when you look at the numbers on this stuff, I mean, geez, deindustrialization and these trade deals, which just outsource so many jobs, have decimated so many communities in this country. The deaths of despair, which he alluded to, right? Yeah. The rise in addiction, the 100,000 overdoses a year. Depending on what poll you look at, anywhere from 60% to 80% of the country living paycheck to paycheck. The 45,000 people who die every year because they don't have basic health care. the destruction of unions in this country.
Wipe your ass with them.
So that our people are slipping out of our middle class. The colossal amounts of income and wealth inequality.
Yeah, if your middle class is fucking shrinking in your country, what does that tell you about the system? Oh, wait. It's failing, dude. The middle class is supposed to be growing, and then that makes the rich grow, because from middle class, you jump into, like rich, and then that's how it's supposed to work, but it's not. The middle class is fucking shrinking. People can barely afford a fucking house in this country. You know what I mean? The jobs suck.
I mean, that is a crisis. When you have 600,000 homeless people, but one person, Jeff Bezos, has $100 billion, seems like there's a bit of a problem there. Seems like at the very least, we need to do redistribution of wealth and shore up our social safety net and all these different things. And all you get from Maher is this sort of terrible defense of capitalism from a personal life perspective. And then he does his whole it's about human nature. And it's like, I don't think he really even understands other options, right? Like, if you ask Bill Maher, define social democracy, you think he can define that?
Nope.
I don't know. If you ask him to talk about,
hey, man, that's a damn good old deal, man. I tell you what, $100 a month, man, you get them hookups, get them old damn two tops jiggling around everywhere and whatnot, man. Nothing but a damn trash,
There's nothing that's particularly radical or extreme or pie in the sky about that. But does he realize that that's an alternative to capitalism? Right? There's a million ways you think he can define that? I don't know. If you ask him to talk about, just democratizing the workplace, right? Like worker-owned co-ops.
Yeah.
Where sort of the companies function in a more democratic way.
So you can vote on
There's
stuff
nothing
in
that's
your company.
particularly radical or extreme or pie in the sky about that. But does he realize that that's an alternative to capitalism? Right? There's a million ways you can construct a system. You could have state-owned enterprises. You could have worker-owned co-ops. You can have hybrid-type systems. And it just seems like he's defending the status quo by default, despite all of the evidence to the contrary that what we're doing right now is not working, and it's devastating. I mean, look, the best example is what just happened with the Silicon Valley bank failure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, immediately the FDIC rushed in and bailed them out. Then the Fed stepped in and bailed them out, because these are elites who were suffering for a 2-second time span. And then you compare that to, for example, the 500,000 medical bankruptcies we have in this country every year, which is the number one cause of bankruptcy. And nobody rushed in and said, oh my God, we got to bail you. This is crazy. 500,000 of our fellow citizens are going bankrupt because they got sick. That is crazy.
That's fucked up.
We need to bail these people out right now. Nobody says it.
That's fucked up.
Nobody says it. So to say this system is working, how? In what sense is it working? In what sense is it working? There's massive bubbles of civil unrest popping up here and there, colossal economic disparity, a tremendous amount of pain. And to think that this is as good as we could do with some tweaks, it's just super naive.
Guys, the Greeks and the Romans knew this. I'm about to tell you. Poverty increases crime. Poverty increases crime. Not only crime, it increases fucking conspiracies and it makes people go crazy. Poverty is not good. The Romans and Greeks, they wrote about this. They knew that poverty was not good for the human brain and for the humans overall. Not having a shelter over you is not good. It fucks you up. Our prison system, the way we do it, it fucks you up. It doesn't rehabilitate. But that's a different topic.
It's just super naive. Man, this guy supported Bernie in 2016. And you could tell. When he switched to Amy Klobuchar in 2020, it became pretty clear that oh, okay. This is not the same guy. Let's see if they say anything else.
But also, I don't figure you for a misanthrope. I don't feel that at the heart of your beliefs is people are bad. Because at the core of my...
He actually does kind of believe that.
Yeah,
that is one of the Bill Maher things. He's, people are stupid. That's his thing. I don't know if he'd say bad, but he'd say stupid.
ideology is not even a begrudging, but an optimistic love of humanity. And my belief, Bill, is that if we enshrine, elevate, celebrate, and possibly even legislate the higher principles about nature, compassion, kindness, service, unity, a willingness to sacrifice, and this is where it does get personal, because I have to ask myself, what are you willing to give up, Russell Brand, in order to live in a fairer world? And I'm not just talking about taxation, because, by the way, affluent, like, sort of, millionaire entertainers ain't the issue. We're talking about billionaire offshore corporations with unprecedented power that make the Carnegies and the Rockefellers look like sort of quaint little guys with Jackson dimes.
But I feel, my guess is that you live a very nice life, and my opinion of that is you should. You're talented, you work your way up, but you can't, like, enjoy it without having some, I think, inappropriate guilt. Or, like, it shouldn't be this way. The world is only what it...
This is literally Bill Maher right now.
Use dang old aforementioned antiquities pursuant to the public domain Title 970 of the State Resource Code. But I tell you what, man, they're tight.
It's literally Bill Maher.
We're always...
That is a fundamentally conservative viewpoint, right? And I wouldn't call it guilt. It's just that Russell Brand is looking at the system and saying, this doesn't make sense and we should change it for justice. You know, I mean, I don't know. I don't know him. Maybe he does have some semblance of guilt, but you don't have to be guilty. You should just want to make the system better.
Trying to better it, but there's, just enjoy. And no, you shouldn't trade places with someone who's, like, not doing well. We should.
All right. By the way, at the beginning of the podcast, they have this, like, sort of debate on hedonism, because Russell Brand lived the rock star lifestyle and there were drugs and there were women, and Maher, like, sort of looks up to that as a kind of ideal. Like, that's the way to live. That's the way to be. And Russell Brand is like, dude, when I was deep in that lifestyle, I was the most miserable I've ever been. And he explains how it's like, it's a vapid pursuit. It's a hollow pursuit. There's no meaning in that. There's no purpose in that. And Maher is just sort of apoplectic about that and can't wrap his mind around the notion that perhaps these are useless endeavors that are trying to fill an empty void. And it's just, it's sort of like watching like a 14-year-old boy debate a grown man who has life experience, and ironically the ages are flipped here. Russell Brand is younger, Bill Maher is older, but Maher played the role of the 14-year-old boy who's like, bro, boobs and weed, bro, boo! And Russell Brand's like, yeah, I've smoked the weed, I've done other drugs, I've grabbed the titties, and at the end of the day, I really wasn't all that happy. So maybe that's not the answer. So, yeah. Anyway, interesting back and forth. Interesting podcast. But, man, Maher, he really does seem like he's changed in that he used to much more aggressively advocate for better positions, whether it's anti-war positions, whether it's redistribution of wealth, universal health care. And then now it's almost like he's proud of the bubble that he's in, So
he sucks.
There you have it. All right, guys.
All right, what's the next topic we got? Becoming like a fucking monopoly. Like, there's monopolies everywhere, and then they start bribing politicians, and it becomes legal to just, like, give money and shit, and, like, corrupt people and lobbying. And, once it gets to that point, no. Like, you gotta heavily regulate capitalism, or it will destroy itself. It's a self-destroying system. Like most systems are.